Let's pray. Armimka Adonai ki dilitani. Adonai Elohai la'olam ojeka amen. I will extol you, O Lord, for you have drawn me up. O Lord my God, I will give thanks to you forever. Amen. Well, as early as September, the worship committee began to think about and to plan for Advent because we weren't sure what COVID was going to be doing. We weren't sure where we were going to be being, but we wanted to do everything that we could to make an at-home Advent feel festive, to feel anticipatory, to feel participatory, so that you can anticipate the coming of Christ and participate in all of those things that make Advent feel like Advent. What can we do to connect one another with us? Yeah, let me try that again. What can we do to connect each other to one another, connect us to one another and to our faith as we near month 9 of COVID? 9 months of this. Our answer came in several forms. One of them is the Advent wreath that if you came to the supply parade, you got. I don't have one at home, but it's very cute with green clay and candles so that you too can be lighting the Advent candles as our various readers throughout Advent light a candle so that you can worship with a lit Advent candle in your own home. It comes in the form of an Advent devotion that we printed up. If you don't have one yet, let me know. I will make sure that you get a copy. If you would rather me email it to you, I can do that too. That comes from Illustrated Ministry. I do that because that is also a part of our theme for Advent this year. As we're following the do not be afraid, the scriptures and the titles. And so this year we're going to talk about how we get commanded over and over again in the Bible, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to hold hope. Do not be afraid to bring peace. Do not be afraid to practice joy. Do not be afraid to choose love. And my own personal addition to the end of the series, do not be afraid to celebrate Christ, because we come together in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of life, in the midst of the uncertainty, and we don't need to be afraid. Today, we gather around screens, living into another step away from gathering in in-person worship. And I know this because I do this and my hands disappear and it's wigging me out. We're going to fix that for next week. And yet the call of God remains the same. Do not be afraid. So today we're going to begin as we dig into the Christmas story, as we find it in the Gospel of Luke, how we can listen to God calling us to not be afraid and how to live out that life as the people of God in Advent as we prepare for the coming of Christ. So Luke is one of the 2 Gospels that directly tell us a birth story that has part of the birth narrative. And the story we think of as the Christmas story is actually found in 2 Gospels. It's not found in one complete place. We get a little bit from Luke and a little bit from Matthew and a little more from Luke and some more from Matthew. And we kind of jumbled the 2 of them together to create this story. And Luke begins with the story of Zechariah being visited by an angel. That wasn't in today's text, but Zechariah is a priest in the service of God and gets visited by an angel and told, your wife Elizabeth, who is old and has never had children, and you're not entirely sure why, she is going to have a son and it's going to be awesome. Start getting ready. And so the angel pronounces and tells us of Elizabeth's pregnancy. And then in today's text, Luke tells us that in the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, so Elizabeth is 6 months pregnant, Mary gets a visit from Gabriel. And Gabriel has all sorts of things to say that get really intimidating really quick. Rejoice, favored one, because that's how we greet everyone these days. Rejoice, favored one, the Lord is with you. Then Gabriel really quickly jumps to, do not be afraid. God is honoring you. You are going to be honored. It's going to be amazing. You're going to conceive a son, give birth. It's going to be awesome. And he will be the Son of God, ruling over all of Jacob's house forever. You, Mary, are going to give birth to the King of all of Israel. And Mary, while slightly taken aback, says, okay, I can get down with that. I can do this. and goes off to see her cousin Elizabeth, who rejoices when Mary shows up and says, "Oh my gosh, it's Mary, my cousin. How cool is this? And now I can tell you that you will be a blessed woman because I can just tell that you're pregnant, and it's exciting and it's awesome." It's a great beginning of a story, right? We have 2 babies coming. So why do we care? What I find amazing is twice in the first chapter of Luke, we have angels telling us not to be afraid. Do not be afraid, the angel says to Zechariah. Do not be afraid, Gabriel says to Mary. Do not be afraid. To me, I think it's a calming message for the moment, right? Do not be afraid. God has heard your prayer. Do not be afraid. God is with you. Do not be afraid. And it's calming because we live in a time where so much seems to be unsettled. We don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next. For people who are watching COVID stats and statistics and all of the data, it's not getting any better. And we're hoping that it's going to turn around sometime soon because, oh my gosh, it's getting scary. For people who yearn for safety and security, I'm one of those people, by the way. Fear and anxiety are almost constant companions. Like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? What is going on? Where are we going? And what does God say to us in the midst of this? Do not be afraid. But it's not just do not be afraid, right? There's more to the story. It's do not be afraid because new life is coming. Because your wife is going to have a baby, one that you have longed for years and years and years. Do not be afraid, Mary. You're going to have a baby and it's going to be different, but it's going to be okay. And the beauty of this is new life brings hope. It brings hope to the generations. It brings hope of light. It brings the hope that all will be well. Do not be afraid, Luke tells us, to hold on to the hope of a better future because God is in that future. God is watching over us and helping us. I've been watching a series called Cable Girls, which is a Spanish show through Netflix. It's dubbed, thankfully, because I don't really like subtitles that much. And in the final season, one of the characters gets pregnant, and it's the middle of the Spanish Civil War, and she is just devastated that she's pregnant because her husband is off at the front. And what kind of world is this, she says, that we could bring a child into this? And her friends look at her and say, no, your child is the hope of a future. Your child is the hope that this is not the life we will live, that the war will end, and we will again be able to celebrate new birth. The coming of Christ is just like that. The coming of a child, the new life, the Christ child, the Son of God, Emmanuel, God with us, is the bringing of new hope. It is the opportunity to say that this pandemic will not last forever, that eventually I will be back in the sanctuary again with arms. That again, we will gather all together in one place for the first time for some of us, to be together in worship, to know that God is with us. And so this Advent, we take time to hold on to that hope. We are not afraid to hold the hope that God is working amongst us. We all hold on to that hope. For some people, it is big and bright and brilliant. For others, it is a single teeny tiny ray of light. And yet we all know that the hope of Christmas is coming. The hope of Christ is coming. So this day, let us be a people who are not afraid to hold on to the hope, who are not afraid for ourselves or for others, that we might shine the light of God to the world, that we may say that today is scary, that things are going on and we have no control over them whatsoever, but we know that Christ is coming, born as a baby, raised and live, watching over us, helping us to experience the love that God has for all. So let us shine that light of hope that all the world may see. Amen.